Is debanking even a thing?
Banking is now a human right, I would argue. You cannot survive these days without a bank account. The bank doesn't actually need to tell you why they've withdrawn
But isn't it
your.
like, so I agree. Like banking is basically a human right. You can't kind of function in society without a bank account. I think if banks were running around with some sort of carnival of activism and going, well, we don't like you, and we're not on board with that, so we're gonna bank cancel you over there. If that was what was happening, I would be like, okay, that's not really on. But I think if you are a Nigel Farage and you've been standing in front of this big billboard saying Britain's full with loads of darker skinned young men on it. If you take that and then you take the thing about like where he was on the radio show and he referred to a Chinese takeaway as a like, I'm not even sure if it's okay for me to say it, but it's like an outdated, problematic way of referring to
Rhymes
Chinese
with
people.
link.
Yes, yeah. So there's that, and then there's the history, the catalogue's history of like when he was a younger man, supposedly, allegedly walking around his Dulwich College saying like unfortunate racist phrases. There's a track record there, and I just feel like if you are of that character and there is this series of recorded events and behaviours, like yes, it wouldn't be right for the bank to go up to this guy, that guy, and just go, oh well, you're not quite on board with our values. But if you are a high profile politician and you've got this track record, doesn't the bank, like, isn't it kind of a bit your fault for being
No,
like that?
no,
And then the bank
no.
going, we don't want to
Dis-
associate with people who construe that person as like,
no, I disagree.
really?
Because you know what? And I'm not making this connection with Nigel Farage because I don't want us to get sued or you because this is your broadcast platform.
Yeah.
Racists deserve bank accounts. I'm sorry, you can be an absolute fascist and deserve a bank account because we. I won't like you. I think your views will be abhorrent. You will be horrific. You may even be criminal in your views. But that is no. You do not have the right to then deprive that person of being able to eat.
Yeah.
And when Pinochet can have a bank account, when paedophiles can have bank accounts, when people who are actually criminally convicted of murder can have bank accounts, well, I'm afraid to say that in the day and age where a bank account is a human right,
Yeah.
then I'm afraid that it's different to a shop refusing you service. You can probably go to another shop. But
No.
would I think their views are abhorrent? Absolutely. But do I think that they should be deprived of the right of being able to buy food? No.
But isn't it like interesting that so a second ago you were like, well, that I potentially I could get sued if I said something on this platform. But in the banking world, couldn't you sue the bank if they were found to have facilitated payment processes for a racist who then went on to use that money to fund a violent racist organization? Like, is that not part of it as well? Like, they're like, we can't be seen to be facilitating racists, unfortunately, but I'm sure some other bank down the road will probably help you out. Is there an
But then
element of
where
that?
does that? I think that's a really fair and interesting point. And I suppose therefore there would be then, and I think actually what you're raising is the fact that I think the banks have gone a little bit far on some of the legislation that's been around about not funding
Right.
criminality and money laundering and things like that. But then, well, I guess my counterpoint to that, because I don't necessarily disagree with you, is then what would you do then? I don't know. So perhaps I'm a serial killer, but I'm using my debit card to get the train to go and kill someone. Well,
Mm.
is the bank at fault then for allowing that person to use their bank card to
Yeah.
go and do that? Do you see what I mean? So, um,
Well, again, interestingly, it comes around. So I find myself in a bit of a paradox with this, where I'm like, does the bank's service have anything to do with the thing that the person's being charged with? And this brings us back to the Russell Brand thing. It's like, I don't feel 100% comfortable with them pulling the plug on his monetization when the stuff that he's putting on YouTube doesn't really have an awful lot to do with, like, there's no credible argument there that Google can say, well, we might be facilitating something that could result in that happening and we might
and
get sued for it. Do you know what I mean?
I agree. I completely agree. But also, what this has exposed is how much these stories aren't actually about Russell Brand or Nigel
Yeah.
Farage. They're actually about something far bigger. But going back to our point about tribalism, all too often, oh well, I don't like Russell Brand, so therefore this is going to be okay. Farage hated Brexit, so therefore this serves him right.
Mm.
And I think sometimes we are in danger because of our tribalism of being the turkeys that end up voting for Christmas.